Zone inspections are the foundation of material readiness, and they're critical to both maintaining and improving the material condition of our ships, but also in the professional development of our officers and enlisted personnel. So whether you're the commanding officer or the most junior member of the crew, this training is meant for you. Responsibility for material condition of Navy ships flows from the C&O through the fleet commanders to the chain of command, including the commanding officer, the wardroom, the chief's mess, and the crew. When you speak of your ship or your space, you're acknowledging and expressing this thing called ownership and your personal responsibility for your ship. The most important challenge that a commanding officer has is to set the standard for their command. The goal for a ship's material condition is like new, but you may say, my ship's kind of old. However, again, the standard is like new. Now, when we speak about material condition, it includes several things: space and equipment condition, operability, safety. Let me say that again: safety. It includes preservation, cleanliness, orderliness, and correct stowage. The ability to achieve this goal will vary across the force and across time. Operating schedules, funding, and other factors will play an important role. But every officer, chief, and blue jacket, whether afloat or ashore, must strive to achieve this goal for your ship or the ships that you support. You can do this. You can ensure that your spaces are clean, they're free of missile hazards, that they support safe equipment operation, and that all systems and equipment are safe to operate and they function as designed to support your ship's mission. You can also achieve a positive trend in the material condition of each space, and you have to commit to make this ship like new, as far as you are able. If we know what's wrong, we document it, and we work at improving it, we'll get better all the time. When these expectations cannot be achieved, the commanding officer should advise his chain of command. The purpose of a zone inspection is to fulfill a Navy regulation to inspect and know the material condition of the ship. This regulation is a historical doctrine for all sailors. It is back to basics. A zone inspection is performed to ensure the proper measures are taken to keep machinery, spaces, and equipment operational, clean, and in a satisfactory state of preservation. At least quarterly, it is to ensure the commanding officer's knowledge of the material status of the ship and to document that condition. Zone inspections convey to the sailor in charge of the space, system, or equipment a real-time professional assessment of the success of his or her efforts in maintaining it and cause another set of eyes to inspect to ensure that no hazardous conditions are developing. Zone inspections are not operational inspections, during which the operation of all equipment will have to be demonstrated. But if equipment is in operation, you should take that opportunity to comment on any inadequacies. Make no mistake, the art of inspecting is one that must be learned. Teaching it to junior officers in the crew is one of the commanding officer's most important responsibilities. Many of the senior enlisted, warrant officers, LDOs, and senior officers aboard have a wealth of experience in inspecting ships, and they're important assets in accomplishing this task. It's a team sport. It's all hands on deck. Zone inspections cause personnel to present their spaces and equipment for inspection, and they're an essential element in developing a sense of ownership by the crew for the material condition of their ship and spaces. This must be reinforced, however, with good leadership, good training, assigning of personal responsibility, and proper support in terms of time and materials to do the job properly. These objectives cannot be achieved by simply walking around the ship. Zone inspections are one place where there is value added from properly planned formality. You can't inspect too often. You have to give the person in charge of a space a chance to correct discrepancies before the next inspection. If you don't, you will not get the desired response and you'll waste everyone's time. A thorough quarterly inspection of each space is probably enough. You should not consider your space walkthrough part of a zone inspection. Although it's very important, they lack the quality and thoroughness of an actual zone inspection. Every space must be inspected. Validate your ship's zone inspection compartment list to ensure that all spaces are included. The most effective zone inspections are those conducted by the commanding officer. However, again, this is an all-hands effort. It's all hands on deck. Where the list of discrepancies are prepared with the person in charge of the space standing next to the commanding officer and the recorder, and each discrepancy is annotated, that provides the person in charge with an excellent perspective of what's wrong with the space. Zone inspection discrepancies should be reported in accordance with the ship's zone inspection instruction and the 3M manual. Documentation should be complete so the discrepancy is clearly described and can be located for correction. Discrepancy lists should be forwarded to the ship's 3M coordinator. Zone inspections offer an opportunity for the commanding officer and his or her selected assistants to train the ship's officers and crew in meaningful inspection techniques. They're an opportunity for the commanding officer to have one-on-one contact with junior personnel and for the officers to familiarize themselves with both the ship and the crew, including members of other departments. Zone inspections provide an inspection of the ship by other eyes. Many of our past disasters on board ship have resulted directly from problems where the crew members involved should have seen this but did not. Inspectors learn more about their ship and are better to respond to emergencies through improved knowledge of the ship's physical layout, where firefighting gear is located, routes of egress and ingress, flammable storage, where people are apt to be. So now it's time to visit a couple of ships where we can carry on this discussion with perhaps some visual examples of the things that we want to talk about. There are lots of ships in Surfland, but everything we're going to talk about now is common to all of them. This is sort of the nuts and bolts of zone inspecting. Later on, we'll get into the details of specific spaces. Okay, so a couple of points. First of all, your attitude about zone inspections is most important. This is not an admin drill. You must consider a zone inspection as essential to your professional growth, to your personal responsibilities, and to making sure that your ship is as good as it can be. One of the most visible signs of your leadership is setting the standards for maintaining material readiness. This is hard work. There's no substitute for professional knowledge. You have to do some homework. A list of references for your further study is provided on this disc. You should use it. For example, Appendix B of the foreword of the Joint Fleet Maintenance Manual contains an extensive list of references. You should use them. Finally, don't forget that the Planned Maintenance System, MRCs, contain a wealth of information and are very specific. You will encounter many items of equipment with which you have little or no familiarity. Learning about their purpose and the way they perform from the technicians who maintain them and operate them is a significant part of your professional development. Remember, there is no such thing as a dumb question, and you will learn a great deal from those who operate the gear or those that live and work in the space. You should do the best job of inspecting that you can and not be concerned with the time it'll take. Dress correctly. Use coveralls so that you don't have to worry about getting dirty. Take a flashlight, a small magnet, and an inspection mirror with you. Preparation is the key to performing a successful zone inspection. It is essential that you take the time beforehand to assemble the CSMP for the spaces which you will be inspecting and study those discrepancies to gain an appreciation of the problems which have been reported in each area. This will help you to identify any questions that you would like answered during your inspections. You should also comment on any poorly written entries. You should also have a copy of 8 o'clock reports, a copy of tag-out log entries for your zone, and a copy of discrepancies from the last zone inspection. Some ships even conduct a zone inspection beforehand and write those discrepancies down so that the inspector can see how well they know their own spaces. A zone inspection is not an operational inspection. It is an assessment of the material condition of the ship at the time of the inspection. Your inspection will set a baseline for future improvement. If you identify an operational problem that is not properly listed in the CSMP or 8 o'clock reports, remember I told you to read those beforehand, it should be documented, but that is not the primary purpose of the inspection. Okay, what do you concentrate on? Well, first of all, safety. Secondly, the material condition of the equipment and the space. Third, proper preservation. And then finally, cleanliness, orderliness, and correct stowage. These are all important and they all tie together. When I speak about material condition, I automatically include all of these attributes even though they could be separately discussed. So a couple of things to ask about material condition. You walk in the space. Does the equipment look well cared for? Is this the equipment you want to go to sea with? Would you put your name on it? Would you stake your reputation on it? How about your life? You will not be testing any equipment, but you should listen and observe those items that are running. Comment on anything that doesn't sound right or look right. Talk to the folks in the space. They'll know. Listen to what the people in the space say about the problems they're having. Take note of what equipment is tagged out or reported out of commission and spot check the tag-out log to see that it's been reported per the ship's tag-out instruction. Inspecting is also an excellent way to stay on top of preservation. Corrosion is one of our major maintenance problems. You can also determine the overall state of cleanliness of the ship particularly in hard-to-see areas and hard-to-clean areas. Remember the tools we talked about: flashlights, coveralls, and inspection mirrors. I mentioned earlier that zone inspection is not a cleanliness inspection. However, it's a great opportunity to determine the cleanliness of the ship, particularly in those hard-to-see areas and those hard-to-clean areas. Remember, the proper tools are important: flashlights, mirrors, and coveralls. If you're not getting dirty, you're probably not doing a good zone inspection. Orderliness and correct stowage have long been bywords of the professional mariner. Stow for sea. You may not be at sea, but the stowage of items should be orderly and functional. Things that are stowed should be clean and properly preserved. Look around. Check lockers. Check inside boxes. Open up workbenches. Ensure the work center does not have its own parts storeroom. Items in the space should be part of an authorized bulkhead spare program and organized. Pre-expended bin items or parts being used to make a specific repair that is in progress are fine. Parts that do not meet these criteria should be turned into the supply department to avoid their misuse in unapproved applications and to maintain control over the parts on board the ship. Let's face it, this brief training session will not turn you into a master materiel inspector. There are just too many things that we will not have a chance to discuss and review. Hopefully, though, this will impress upon you the importance of paying attention to the material condition of your ship, both for formal zone inspections and in daily shipboard life. It's all about culture. Identifying and fixing discrepancies before they become problems will contribute to improving your quality of life and that of your shipmates. This concludes the first of several videos on zone inspections. We've shared with you what a zone inspection represents, how it should be conducted, and why it is so important. In the next videos, we will take a detailed look at some of the techniques for certain spaces that you may use to ensure that your inspection is successful, whether it's a zone inspection or a routine walkthrough of your spaces.